Meeting to order. August 11th, 2025. Verification of meeting posted. This meeting was posted in accordance with all Wisconsin state law. Attendance roll call. Are you ready for that?
Probably. Chris?
Yes.
Terry?
Yep.
Here, Lori?
Yep.
And Tracy and Kevin and Jason are excused.
All right, we can all stand. And Tracy, could you please stand the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And 1E, approval of agenda. We need a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, we have no recognitions and nobody here for public comment. We'll skip that. Motion to approve the consent agenda.
So. Second.
Any discussion or a wish to remove any item for individual consideration? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And on to the superintendent report.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. Thank you again for being here tonight. Would like to start out first with just an expression of gratitude for our first responders, our police department, fire department, all of our EMTs navigating through this past weekend. It is easy to shine in a community when things are going smoothly, but the way folks rallied in small businesses who offered help via social media, and the way folks have stepped up, and among you who reached out to other people, offered support, the care of your community when you are part of it. To me, those actions really exemplified what it means to be a part of One Warrior. So it's just grateful for all those folks who worked tirelessly to care for others. Our first agenda item is our student service report to the board on seclusions and restraints as required by state statute.
Yes,
And I will turn it over to Ms. Kari Olson.
thank you. And I will just wait for that to come up. So, do you want me to do clicking or do you want me to do clicking?
Nope, I'm gonna do it.
All right, super.
Oh, sorry, my eyes are not good here.
There you go.
There, yeah.
Thank you for your patience while we combobulate over here. So this is the seclusion and restraint report. I want to provide you at the outset with a definition of what seclusion and physical restraint mean. So seclusion refers to an involuntary confinement of a student apart from other students in a room or an area from which the student is physically prevented from leaving. This is not a student taking a break. This is a student being contained to keep them safe. Physical restraint refers to the restriction that immobilizes or reduces the ability of a student to freely move his or her torso, arms, legs, or head. And again, this is only activated when the child is in imminent danger of harming themselves or somebody else. So the Wisconsin state statute that governs the use of seclusion and restraint in schools is Wisconsin State Statute 118.305. And it really addresses who is allowed to restrain students and in which circumstances they are allowed to be restrained or secluded. And that really is, again, just to reiterate, it's when the student's behavior presents a clear, present, and imminent risk to the physical safety of students or school staff. And the seclusion and restraint options are the least restrictive feasible options. So if there's another way in which a staff member can intervene to keep that child, other children, or staff members safe, they would default to that first prior to engaging in seclusion and restraint. So one of the things that we do, it's also required by the law, but something that we do really well in Muskego, Norway, is we make sure that our staff are trained in what's called crisis prevention intervention. And it is a training program that we put staff through to help them learn some de-escalation tactics so that they can implement those and avoid seclusion and restraint, But if they find themselves in a position where a physical restraint needs to occur, they are trained on how to provide those restraints in a way that keeps the child safe and doesn't put them at risk of physical injury, and also protects the staff from physical injury. In addition, it outlines when and how to engage in a seclusionary practice that, again, keeps the child safe, keeps the staff safe. We are required to have one individual trained in crisis prevention intervention in our school district, and currently Muskego Norway School has approximately 175 staff trained. Most learning strategists and therapists are trained. The only ones who are not trained are our first year hires. So they have 1 year, so within their first year of hire, they must participate in the training. That is an internal required practice. Also, that same thing goes for our our special education instructional assistants. Our school psychologists also have to be trained within that first year of hire. Same thing with social workers and our school resource officers. And they need to update their training every 3 years as a required internal practice. Some of our regular education teachers are trained members of the crisis team at school. So if it's a gen ed teacher and they're a member of the crisis team, they participate in the crisis intervention training. Some of our regular educational assistants also are trained. It's interesting, we have people who don't require or aren't required to participate in the training volunteering, because it's a really good professional learning opportunity around de-escalation and how to respond in a crisis for a child. And then our building principals are also trained, and then they update their training every 3 years.
Do you say most on that slide just because of the 1 year thing? Because
Yeah.
everyone should be trained, right?
Well, we're only required to have one person, but
Oh.
when I say most, for the learning strategists, special education instructional assistants, and then the student services personnel, that's because they are as a part of their job. It's an internal requirement that we have at Muskego that they get trained within their first year of employment, and then we participate in that training every 3 years just to up their skills. And then it's some regular education teachers, educational assistants, and our building principals also are, we don't require them to, but they are all trained and have continued to update their training regularly.
I'm just surprised that it's not a state law that all have to.
Yeah, it is, it's just one individual in the district has to be trained, so yeah.
District or school?
School, yeah, thank you for that. Okay, so then there are reporting requirements for Act 118, and the district designee must submit a report, that would be me, containing the following information to the Board of Education by October 1st, and then Todd will receive a inquiry from the Department of Public Instruction, which he'll forward to me. I will complete that, and that will go to the Department of Public Instruction, because they are, per Act 118, monitoring the use of seclusion and restraint in school districts. So we have to provide the number of incidents of seclusion during the previous year. So this report is going to reflect seclusion and restraints that occurred in the 24-25 school year. And it's the total number of students involved in those incidents. It's the number of students with disabilities involved in those incidents. And it is the, so same thing for seclusion and restraint. It's just the number of students, it is the number of incidents, and it's the number of students with disabilities that were involved. So this is our incidence of seclusion, and I have provided some trend data in addition for you. So you will see in the 24-25 school year, we had 38 seclusion events. There were 7 students involved in those events, and all 7 of those students are students with disabilities and receiving specially designed instruction. As you'll note, the year prior we had fewer seclusion events, and then the year before that we had an increased number. There are a lot of variables that come into play with that. Sometimes we have students who are learning new strategies for emotionally regulating and are struggling with that. And so we may have additional seclusion events. It can sometimes ebb and flow. But what you'll notice when I flip to this next slide is that we had fewer incidents of restraint, and I apologize, I have a typo there. That second column should say number of restraint events. But we have fewer number of restraint events this year. So students that were experiencing restraint events last year, the year prior, fewer are experiencing that within this last school year. And of the students that were involved in those restraint events, there were 9. All 9 of those students are children with disabilities and are receiving specially designed instruction. And then you can take a look at the restraint data. So then we break that out by building. You'll note that seclusion and restraint events occur most frequently at our elementary schools. There are a number of reasons for that. One reason is our littlest learners are really working on emotional regulation and strategies for calming themselves or engaging in that joint regulation with an adult. And also our students get larger in stature, and it really isn't safe to place some of our larger students in a restraint position. You'll note there was one seclusion that occurred at Muskego Lake last year. Any questions about that?
When seclusion is a room, right?
Correct.
So is it any closest room? Is it like, because obviously a room could be made up of many different things, which in and of themselves could be dangerous if a student is really upset about something, right?
Yeah. So we don't have seclusion rooms per se in
Yeah.
Muskego, Norway. And we also know that it's dangerous to try to move a student that is significantly dysregulated. So whenever possible, what we'll do is clear the room of other students, and staff will try to move items that would be things that kids could hurt themselves on or throw and harm somebody else with out of the way quickly. And then it really is just using their training to place themselves in a situation where they're safe, and like blocking the opportunity for a child to leave the room, or blocking the opportunity for a child to get to things that are unsafe within that environment. If we have a student who we know has more frequent events, oftentimes we will move that child through an IEP process to more of a contained setting so that they're in a safe setting. And if they do become dysregulated, we just have people move out of the room except for the person monitoring the seclusion and the person who is witnessing and taking notes.
And you may have said this already, but do you notify parents every time?
Correct.
Either seclusion or restraint? Okay.
Yeah, that's a great question, and actually I'll just give you a little bit more information about that, because it's a requirement of Act 118, is that anytime there's a seclusion or restraint event, we need to make contact with the parents within 1 business day. Of course, we call right away, right, because that's important for families to be informed, but they also receive a document that contains information about what occurred prior to the episode where the child became dysregulated, what occurred during the actual event, what was the duration of the seclusion or the restraint, who were witnesses, and then what happened following that. And then teams are required to come together, the adults that were involved in this, and debrief and talk about what were things that we could do different in the future to prevent a child from becoming dysregulated to that level. Were all the adults kept safe? Were all the children kept safe? Just to really make sure that every time we go into an event where there's a seclusion and restraint, we are really making the safest and most critical decisions to provide safety for all those involved.
Is there potential overlap between the same kids that are being secluded or restricted?
Yes.
Because Lakeview seems for the smaller school to have the highest amount, and it's the same number. So I'm not sure if that's the same student, but
It could
and
potentially
just
be.
at what point does it become difficult to not disrupt the classroom for all the other kids when you have so many events?
And so it's important to note that if we have a student who's got a pattern of behavior, through that IEP process, we're working on specially designed instruction to build those strategies. But when a student's behavior reaches a level where there's imminent risk of danger, we will often move them into more of a contained setting until they're able to regulate themselves better. So these events are not necessarily happening in a general education classroom. We also want to protect the dignity of students, because when they're dysregulated like that, we don't want others to have a front row seat to it, if you will. So we try to keep them in more of a contained setting to prevent their dignity until they're able to build those strategies and go back into the general education environment.
And I'm sure the parents are aware, I don't know, does the county or does anyone have support systems in place for those parents for how to help their kids?
Yes, we have wonderful school social workers who have contacts in the county and are aware of a lot of resources within the community. For example, mental health care providers, access to respite care for families, access to therapeutic services that might be free within our county. So our school social workers are really skilled at knowing where those resources are and connecting families with those resources and taking into consideration their economic status, so that if they don't have, if they're working in underinsured, or if they don't have insurance for some reason, that they're still able to access those resources so they can be taking care of themselves and their children. Yeah.
And Kari, the parents and the teacher or aide are all in the same place for the plan in place, right? Because I can see a lot of confusion from the child if he's to do one thing at home and a different thing at school, and they're just,
Yeah. So we work really hard with families to make sure that they have resources and strategies for supporting their child at home. We also ask for authorization to obtain and disclose information with community-based mental health care providers if the child has that, so that we can all come together as a cohesive team to support the child, to your point, in a cohesive manner. We don't always get the opportunity to do that, but we do the best we can to build those bridges so that we're all consistent in our practice. But one thing that we're really hardwired on and consistent is that the adults in school have that behavior intervention plan. So the adults in the building are aware that if this child is behaving this way, here's what I'm supposed to do in it as an adult. And it might be call a special education teacher. It might be don't approach the student if they're walking in the hallway, because that might trigger them. There are behavior intervention plans in place so that all the adults in our building know what to do and how to interact with the child while they're learning to regulate their emotions.
yeah, we have the same thing. It's called a Let's Cope Together plan.
Yeah.
Where they have to, like, we're supposed to, as a person caring for that individual, follow that plan so it doesn't derail the patient or the student.
Yeah, exactly the same. Yep.
Kari, I just want to, one of the concerns I know that comes up frequently is when a child gets deregulated in the classroom and all of the other students have to leave the classroom is very disruptive. So how many, walk me through a scenario, how many times does the child have to be violent in a classroom and the other students be removed? I'm concerned about their mental health as well, because obviously that's very scary for a kindergartner, first grader, second, anyone to see, someone completely lose it like that. How does that process work? How many times, what does that time frame look like? If it happens 3-4 times in a week, does something else start to happen? What's the timeline on something?
Yeah, great question, Terry. So one of the things that we do is after 2 seclusion or restraint events, we reconvene an IEP if it's a child with a disability. But there are a lot of factors that we take into consideration, and it really comes down to the individual child and trying to maintain continuity within our school classrooms and things like that. Well, we always want to protect the mental health and safety of all of our students. Sometimes we have children who engage in big unexpected behaviors, and that doesn't mean automatic removal from the gen ed environment. It means we need to come together and talk about what are the supports and services we can put in place so that that child is safe and not engaging in the unexpected behaviors. Balancing that though with maintaining continuity within our classrooms in a safe learning environment. And so there's not a magic number, but we do convene the IEP team.
After it? Okay.
Yeah, really quickly.
I mean, it's, I know that has been brought up by other family members, how that's scary for my kid too. And they feel like it's taking forever, but it isn't. So it's
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. So this is the restraint data by building. So the prior was the seclusion. This is the restraint data by building. You'll note that we do not engage in physical restraint at the middle or high school level. If there is a situation where a restraint would be warranted, that would be when we would call in our SROs. Again, just from the sheer size of the student, there's too much risk for a student to become injured or a staff member to become injured. So this is identification and next steps. So one of the things that we do is we take a look, obviously internally in the Special Ed and Student Services Department at our seclusion and restraint data, and we process that information. We also review the reports to look back and see if there were any opportunities for improvement within those reports. We make sure that our staff are required to participate in that crisis prevention intervention training. And then we provide targeted staff with additional training on de-escalation and joint regulation, where we see increased events of dysregulation occurring amongst students. Because we want to make sure our staff are doing everything they can to joint regulate and support that child in re-regulating. We are going to be hosting dialectical behavioral therapy training for all of our student services personnel and our secondary special education staff, actually next week. And so that is one of those trainings that will address how do we help kids re-regulate, how do we help kids to manage their behavior in response to their emotions and things like that. So our staff will be doing a 3-day workshop on that. And then we will be working on ways that we can integrate those practices and really hardwire them into our schools to reduce any need for any of those types of things. Any other questions?
So off of Terry's note, let's say, because we don't want to violate FERPA or anything like that
Right.
with the students and stuff, but let's say there was an incident in a room that occurred, could there be a note sent from the principal or the teacher in the room to the families of that room to say this occurred, and, you know, just so that they can deregulate or de-escalate it at home
Yeah.
with their own kid?
There, in very rare circumstances, a letter might be sent saying, student experienced some dysregulation today. We want to just reassure families that, you know, nobody was injured. Staff managed the situation. We try not to do that very often though, because again, it gets really easy for those students to be identified, and we want to protect their dignity. But again, we have to do that in balancing helping families really understand that our schools are a very safe place to be, and their children are in very healthy, safe learning environments, so.
And then is, sorry.
No, it's
I
okay.
keep
No, you're good.
going.
You're good.
Is any of this data also represented at all with the busing situation?
So we do not have seclusion or restraints on the bus, because there's no trained personnel on the bus to do that. And if there is a need for that to occur, those students are then moved to special education busing.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah. And then we use other things to keep kids safe on the bus.
Right, okay.
Given the number of incidences, especially at Lakeview, and the few number of children involved, I would hazard a guess that the same staff members are involved in multiple instances, right? What are we doing to support the staff? Because it has to be emotionally draining.
Yeah, and that really, thank you for asking that. So one of the things that we make sure is that if staff members are involved in a seclusion or restraint event, that there are backup people that they can call to tap out. So if they are feeling like, I gotta walk away from this situation, they have tap out people. That's why we have so many people trained, so that people can move in and out. There's always a person, so if I was the person restraining the child, there's always another adult there taking notes. And so we can very quickly switch if I'm needing a break, because it is physically demanding to hold a child in a manner that keeps them safe and keeps your body safe. And that's why that we just really require that extensive training. But then also afterwards, those staff are told, do you need to take a break? Do you need to take a moment? Go get a drink of water, take a lap or two around the building. How can I support you? I get calls from the principals. I will go out to the building and support staff, and I'll go step into the classrooms too, so.
Yeah, I just really appreciate that question because in today's day and age, there is a shortage of individuals pursuing special education. There is a shortage of educational assistants and instructional assistants. And these situations are incredibly stressful for our staff because they really care about the students and they love these students. And when those moments happen, there's often this feeling of guilt of, well, I wish I could have done something different. How did I not know how to prevent this in the first place? Just really appreciate the way our buildings rally around and check in for multiple layers. I know it's something CAR does incredibly well is also caring for those staff as they navigate that because it is tough.
We must have something through our health services that has a lifeline, like Life Matters Lifeline or something that they can call, right?
Yep.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm sure they could contact Tracy and get that
Yep.
number. or
Yeah,
something.
there's support that way, and again, one of the things where I appreciate that it showed up again on our strategic plan is that aspect of wellness, and every person in our system should have someone at work that they're close enough that they can immediately have a face-to-face conversation and say, if I'm stressing or I'm hurting, I need to have a go-to person in addition to that EAP call line. So it's something our building principals work very hard at, and I think they're very attuned to these situations and the emotional weight that it carries for our staff. So we have to take care of our people because they're doing a great job caring for our students.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for the questions on that. Next item on the superintendent's report is just a brief update on the process and progress with our tennis courts and the potential renovations there. Mr. Johnson and I were able to meet with the Friends of Pickleball about 2 weeks ago to really initiate that conversation and share a little bit more of the details that were involved with the potential partnership. After we were able to share kind of the limitations of what is our use requirements during boys tennis and girls tennis. We created an FAQ document for them to understand kind of what was the scope of the project and what were our use needs. They took that back to the group that they had worked with in their fundraising efforts, and they have made the decision that they are no longer interested in a partnership. Just specifically the amount of time that they wouldn't be able to access the courts was their main area of concern. So we'll continue to work with our tennis program and explore opportunities to make that program and that facility have some updates in the next several years. So more to come on that. So thanks for your patience with that.
Ted, will they have conversation if once we move forward at some point to renovate those, to make some of them convertible anyway for us? Okay.
Yeah, that's something that from a facilities management standpoint, as we looked at other schools, it's not uncommon to have dual purpose lines painted on there. What was originally proposed with this potential partnership were specific sleeves for permanent but removable netting that would make that happen. And most other high schools simply have the lines painted on and you can bring portable nets, which is also something that most communities appreciate. So we'll definitely explore that. The final component of the superintendent's report is just expressing some gratitude for Mr. Johnson, who was the keynote speaker at the Wisconsin Association of School Business Officials Summer Conference. So again, it is
Someplace nice, Hawaii.
No, it was an Elkhorn.
That's nice.
very close to
Nice.
It was corny.
It is really very cool, though. It's been such an honor and humbling to be in this role and speaking to colleagues in the superintendent role at different districts, how well respected our cabinet member staff are and the way other districts speak about our leaders. So testament to the great work that's happening here and your willingness to share your expertise and your story and your inspirational messages to help other districts continue to strive towards continuous improvement. So thanks for giving back to the profession. And that concludes our superintendent's report.
All right, on to other reports. President's report, just echoing what Mr. Irvine said about just the flooding in our community and the people rallying around. Those people need a lot of support. I've been there, and it is a very emotional, very hard, stressful time. So if anyone, I think there's a lot of opportunities for volunteers. I know people are meeting at Mark's Pops at 9 a.m. every day to head out to help people. Donations, things like that to help them. So that is, it takes a village to help everybody. There's a lot of people affected. And National Night Out is this Wednesday. It will happen. And our elementary mascots are making an appearance. It's newly added this year. I thought about having them race, but I haven't, I'm not sure yet.
Excuse me.
Just by that comment
You can put
alone,
a
I'm
beer at
really
the
excited
end.
for the possible race now.
I don't know if we'll do it. If it's really, really hot, and now that it's kind of maybe a little wet out there, we'll leave it up to the mascots to see if they want to have any competition that day.
Race for a pride. Put it at the end.
When we used to have the racing sausages, it was always a hit to have them race. But I think them being out there, just being with the kids that are there, I think will be super fun. So they're going to be there at 6 o'clock. About 6 to 6:30 is when they're making their appearance. And they can, dance a little bit to the music.
High five. A lot of high fives.
So it'll be fun. It'll be a fun addition. I've been wanting to do that for a while, and it just hasn't worked out until this year. Of course, our drum line will be there again this year to lead the glow stick walk at the end. But it's a great event, and especially with how hard our police and fire department are working this week. And since Saturday, it'd be a great way to go there, thank them, shake their hand, and this is a great way to raise money to give back to them. So all the proceeds go back to them. So it's a great community event.
Thank you. And I apologize. I missed one too that I meant to say, because at 2 o'clock on Saturday night, when Mr. Johnson and his team were at the high school responding to alarms and checking our buildings, our building and grounds team was also working their tails off to ensure our buildings were safe. And as water was starting to leak into our facilities, they were on top of it and made sure that nothing else happened. So I had a note to do that, and I totally forgot. So huge shout out to you and your team for being on call 24/7. Like really, it's a huge testament to the dedication to our buildings. So thank you for that.
It's definitely was a feeling of confidence. Like, I know Jeremiah and his team is on this, and they're gonna be good. So that says a lot about you guys. So
We
thank
actually
you.
had something weirder happen than water. So the water was coming in, yes, but I think a lightning strike did something to reset our HVAC system. So when I walked in the high school, it was 110 degrees. I was like, I know it was hot today, but this doesn't seem right. So we spent like 2 hours trying to get the heat off, and it was like the system had a mind of its own.
Oh, how weird. There was a lot of lightning.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
So we can honestly say our building was struck by lightning.
Something, man, it was some static out in there.
Wow.
I think it was Mr. McMillan, but I can't prove that.
That would make more sense.
All right, that is all I have. So we'll go on to other board member reports. Chris?
I'm just learning a lot through WAPAS and trying to get myself up to speed with everything going on.
Oh. Right. Tracy?
I just keep sending it's a weekly email that comes out, but if it's the same information, I'm not sharing it again with you guys, so that you're just getting the updates from CISA. And we have our first, second of the month meeting tomorrow, because they switched it from the third Tuesday of the month. So now I don't have a conflict with the library board and CISA. So excited.
Excellent. All right. And on to committee reports. Lori, Educational Services Committee.
So we met prior to the board meeting, and we discussed updates for Act 20. Some updates around our elementary multi-level system support, especially with collaboration between our various schools, and that's all going well. We're looking at, talked about assessments, and then some exciting curriculum updates, which we'll have more information on in our next meeting around art curriculum, so we look forward to that. So minutes forthcoming.
Great, thank you. And there is no policy committee report. And business services report. Do you want to give it?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
We talked about the tennis courts. It was the only thing on the agenda this evening, but it's no different than what Superintendent Irvine just shared, so.
Okay. And then the preliminary budget, we are putting off because of some software issues, and we will get back to that before the September board meeting. Get that. Go. All right, on to resolution action items. You know what, why don't you just read the motion, because otherwise I'm going to repeat the same thing.
Okay. Motion to approve policy 8500 food services, policy 8510 wellness, policy 8531 free and reduced price meals, policy 8540 vending machines, policy 8550 competitive food sales as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion?
I just had the one question, so if you had a response to that.
Do you want to handle that?
Yeah, so I wasn't able to hear back from our Neola representative. The research I did is it is required language, and I'll just bring up the exact language again.
So people know, I just was inquiring about, within the free or reduced, there was a statement about who qualifies, and one of them just said migrants.
Yep.
And I was trying to clarify, is that legal or documented or undocumented?
It is defined by our Department of Public's instructions, MEP it's called, so it stems first from the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the reauthorization of the Categorical Eligibility for Free and Reduced Lunches Act back in 2004. And then it further defines that for migratory children, each state's educational agency, which is DPI, migrant education program will establish their own process for determining if a child meets the criteria provided under Elementary and Secondary School Education Act of 1965. State nutritional agencies must contact their state MEP program to develop a plan for sharing this. So ours is DPI, and what they defined migrant status as, excuse me, I sent it in a text message. They define a migrant child as one whose parent is a migratory worker in agriculture, fishing, or related processing work, and who has moved within the past 36 months for seasonal or temporary work, and that's according to DPI. So that's the definition that we are required to use.
I just was curious.
Any other discussion, questions? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 8B, new compliance officer.
Motion to approve Courtney Arnson as the new compliance officer, replacing Robin Schroet.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. And then the next one, we probably should have removed that from the agenda, but this agenda item is being moved to the next board meeting, so,
CND, correct?
yes. So, resolution action item C and D will be moved to the September board meeting. I can't even say that.
You're telling me.
Smooth.
Let's go.
And so that's, all right. And now, resolution action item 8E, gifts, grants, and bequests.
Motion to approve with thanks the following donations as presented. Mill Valley Elementary, $700 from Shirley Knight and the EJ Salentine River Run Riders for Mill Valley's special education team for the designated purchase of materials to enhance the sensory room. And Title I grant, $86,250 from the Title I grant to be used towards instructional resources for students at the greatest risk of not reaching proficiency benchmarks. Sorry, a little tongue-tied. You get a motion?
So moved.
Need a second?
Second?
Discussion. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, there are no discussion items, and under information follow-up, you'll find your monthly financial reports and your support staff co-curricular hires resignations for retirements. And that concludes our meeting, so a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 We are adjourned.